The swarm of angry bees clouded the night sky as Samantha watched in horror. Her beloved backyard apiary, carefully tended to for years, now lay in smoldering ruins. She had poured her heart and soul into those hives, nurturing the insects that pollinated her lush garden and provided sweet golden nectar for the entire neighborhood. But the Homeowners Association had declared her beehive a public nuisance and ordered its immediate removal. When she refused, armed security guards from the HOA had stormed her property under the cover of darkness, ruthlessly destroying everything in a matter of minutes. Now, as the last vestiges of her beloved bees drifted away on the cool evening breeze, Samantha realized with sinking dread that this was only the beginning of her nightmare. The HOA's wrath had been unleashed, and she knew they would stop at nothing to crush her defiance. Gripping the smoldering remains of one of her hives, Samantha steeled herself for the fight of her life. The HOA may have won this battle, but the war for control of her community had only just begun. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next morning, Samantha awoke to the sound of angry shouts and screeching tires outside her home. Rushing to the window, she gasped in horror as she witnessed her neighbors desperately swarming the local market, their faces contorted with panic. "No honey. What do you mean there's no honey?" An elderly woman cried, shaking her fist at the bewildered store clerk. Samantha's stomach twisted as she pieced together what had happened. Without her bees to pollinate the local flora, the entire area's honey supply had been decimated. Her neighbors, accustomed to the constant bounty of her hives, were now faced with a shocking shortage. Grabbing her coat, Samantha hurried outside, determined to confront the HOA president, Meredith Wilkins, the ruthless mastermind behind the attack on her beehives. As she approached the imposing gates of the HOA headquarters, Samantha's heart raced. The luxurious offices exuded an air of power and control, a stark contrast to the growing panic and desperation gripping her community. Taking a deep breath, Samantha pushed open the doors and strode into the lobby, her eyes immediately landing on Meredith's tall, angular frame as she stood at the center of a gaggle of well-dressed associates. "Meredith," Samantha called out, her voice quivering with a mix of fear and outrage. "What have you done?" The HOA president turned, her lips curling into a venomous smile. "Ah, Samantha. I was hoping you'd come to your senses and accept our decision regarding your unsightly beehive." "Unsightly," Samantha scoffed, her hands clenching into fists. That unsightly beehive was the lifeblood of this entire community. Now everyone is suffering because of your callous actions. Meredith's smile only widened, her eyes glinting with a dangerous triumph. "That's exactly the point, my dear. You see, the HOA has been looking to seize control of this neighborhood for years. And now, with the honey supply gone, the residents will be forced to rely on us for everything." Samantha felt the blood drain from her face as the full scope of Meredith's twisted scheme dawned on her. You planned this. You wanted to destroy my bees, didn't you?" "Of course," Meredith purred, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "And now, the HOA reigns supreme. Welcome to your new reality, Samantha. A reality where you and every other homeowner in this community will answer to me." Samantha's world collapsed around her as Meredith's chilling words sank in. The HOA president's callous manipulation had not only destroyed her beloved beehives, but had now placed the entire community at the mercy of the HOA's iron-fisted control. Gritting her teeth, Samantha refused to back down. "This isn't over, Meredith. I won't let you get away with this." The HOA president's eyes narrowed, her amusement giving way to a dangerous edge. "Oh, I think you'll find that it is, my dear. You see, the HOA has eyes and ears everywhere. Any attempt to undermine our authority will be quickly crushed." Samantha's heart pounded as she realized the full scope of the HOA's power. Meredith was right. The neighborhood was now firmly in the grip of the HOA's sinister machinations. She had to find a way to fight back, but the odds seemed overwhelmingly stacked against her. "What do you want from me?" Samantha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Meredith's lips curled into a malicious smile. "Simple. Comply with every HOA rule and regulation without question. And in return, we'll consider allowing you to keep what's left of your pathetic little garden." Samantha felt her stomach turn. The HOA was holding her community hostage, using the honey shortage as a bargaining chip to cement its control. She knew that resistance would only invite more punishment and suffering for her neighbors. As Meredith watched her with a predatory gaze, Samantha realized that she had no choice. The HOA had won this round, but she vowed to find a way to fight back, no matter the cost. Summoning every ounce of courage, Samantha squared her shoulders and met Meredith's gaze. "Fine. I'll do as you say. For now." The HOA president's smile widened, her eyes glinting with triumph. "Excellent. I'm so glad we could come to an understanding." Samantha turned and walked away, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. She knew that the battle had only just begun, and that she would need to be smarter, bolder, and more determined than ever to take down the HOA's stranglehold on her community. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the days that followed, the honey shortage continued to wreak havoc on the neighborhood. Residents queued for hours outside the local market, desperately trying to secure even a single jar of the precious golden liquid. Tempers flared, and tensions ran high as the community found itself at the mercy of the HOA's ruthless machinations. Samantha watched it all with a heavy heart, her own beehives reduced to a pile of charred, lifeless ruins. She knew that she had no choice but to comply with the HOA's demands, at least for the time being. But deep within her, a fire was burning, fueled by a determination to find a way to take down the corrupt organization that had seized control of her community. As the sun set over the once thriving neighborhood, Samantha's eyes narrowed with steely resolve. She would not rest until she had found a way to free her community from the HOA's iron grip, no matter the cost. The honey shortage continued to grip the community, with residents growing increasingly desperate and volatile. Tempers flared as people jostled and shoved their way to the front of the long lines outside the local market, each hoping to secure a precious jar of the golden liquid. Samantha watched it all from her window, her heart heavy with guilt and anger. She knew that the HOA's ruthless actions were solely responsible for this crisis, and she burned with a desire to expose their sinister scheme. But Meredith's chilling warning still echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the HOA's far-reaching power and influence. As the days passed, Samantha began to notice subtle changes in her neighborhood. Neighbors who had once been friendly and supportive now eyed each other with suspicion, unwilling to share their dwindling supplies of honey. The once vibrant community spirit had been replaced by a tense and uneasy atmosphere, as everyone scrambled to protect their own interests. Determined to find a way to fight back, Samantha began to delve deeper into the HOA's history and operations. She scoured old records, investigated financial transactions, and interviewed other residents, desperate to uncover any evidence of wrongdoing. But the HOA's web of secrecy and control proved to be a formidable obstacle. Any time Samantha made progress, she would be met with roadblocks, files conveniently missing, witnesses suddenly becoming unavailable, and a general sense of unease that permeated the community. Undeterred, Samantha refused to give up. She knew that the key to taking down the HOA's stranglehold lay in exposing their corruption and manipulation to the public. But as she dug deeper, she began to realize just how far the HOA was willing to go to protect its interests. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. One night, as Samantha pored over a stack of financial documents, she heard a sudden noise outside her home. Peering out the window, she caught a glimpse of a dark figure slipping away into the shadows. Her heart raced as she realized that someone had been watching her. Shaken but resolute, Samantha knew that she had to be even more cautious in her investigation. The HOA was clearly willing to resort to intimidation and even violence to keep their secrets hidden. But she refused to be cowed, determined to find a way to bring down the corrupt organization and restore her community's way of life. As she sat in the darkness of her home, Samantha's mind raced with 1,000 different scenarios and strategies. She knew that the battle ahead would be long and arduous, but she was more convinced than ever that she had to take a stand. The future of her neighborhood and her own personal freedom depended on it. With a renewed sense of purpose, Samantha began to formulate a plan, her eyes narrowing with determination. The HOA may have won the first round, but she was far from ready to admit defeat. This war was just getting started. The tension in the community continued to escalate as the honey shortage dragged on. Neighbors who had once been cordial now eyed each other with suspicion, hoarding their meager supplies and refusing to share. The local market had resorted to rationing, further fueling the growing unrest. Samantha watched it all unfold with a heavy heart, her mind consumed by her investigation into the HOA's corruption. She had spent countless hours poring over financial records, interview transcripts, and old meeting minutes, piecing together a damning web of evidence that pointed to Meredith and her associates' nefarious schemes. But every time Samantha thought she had a breakthrough, she would hit another roadblock. Files would go missing, witnesses would suddenly become unavailable, and the HOA's stranglehold on the community seemed to grow ever tighter. Undeterred, Samantha knew she had to find a way to expose the truth and free her neighborhood from the HOA's grip. She began to reach out to other residents, quietly sharing her findings and urging them to join her in the fight. But the fear and intimidation tactics employed by the HOA had taken their toll, and many were too afraid to risk the consequences of defying the powerful organization. As tensions reached a boiling point, Samantha realized that she needed to take drastic action. She had to find a way to bypass the HOA's well-guarded defenses and bring her evidence directly to the public. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. One night, as Samantha pored over her notes, a plan began to take shape in her mind. She knew that the HOA's annual meeting was just around the corner, a gathering where the organization's leaders would come together to discuss their agenda and assert their dominance over the community. Samantha's eyes narrowed with determination. If she could somehow infiltrate the meeting and expose the HOA's corruption in front of the entire neighborhood, it might just be the catalyst she needed to galvanize the community into action. But the task was fraught with risk. The HOA's security was notoriously tight, and Samantha knew that any misstep could result in severe consequences. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that this might be her only chance to turn the tide. With a deep breath, Samantha began to meticulously plan her course of action. She would need to gather her evidence, find a way to sneak into the meeting undetected, and be prepared to deliver a devastating blow to the HOA's reputation. As the day of the annual meeting drew near, Samantha felt a mixture of fear and determination. She knew that the stakes had never been higher, but she was more convinced than ever that she had to take a stand. The future of her community and her own freedom depended on it. With a steely resolve, Samantha made her final preparations, her mind racing with the possibilities of what might unfold. This was her moment, her chance to strike back against the corrupt HOA and reclaim her neighborhood. Whatever happened, she was ready to fight. The day of the HOA's annual meeting dawned with a palpable sense of tension in the air. Samantha knew that this was her best, and perhaps only, chance to expose the organization's corruption and free her community from its iron grip. As the sun rose over the neighborhood, Samantha carefully reviewed her plan one final time. She had meticulously gathered her evidence, from financial records to interview transcripts, all meticulously organized and ready to be presented. Now she just had to find a way to infiltrate the heavily guarded HOA headquarters and deliver her devastating blow. Steeling her nerves, Samantha made her way towards the imposing gates, her heart pounding in her chest. She had managed to secure a last-minute invitation to the meeting, thanks to some creative maneuvering, but she knew that getting inside would be only half the battle. As she approached the entrance, Samantha was greeted by a wall of security guards, their faces impassive and their eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. Swallowing hard, she presented her invitation and prayed that her disguise would hold up under scrutiny. To her relief, the guards waved her through, and Samantha found herself stepping into the grand lobby of the HOA headquarters. The air was thick with the scent of power and privilege, and she could feel the weight of 1,000 watchful eyes upon her. Clutching her documents tightly, Samantha made her way towards the meeting hall, her senses on high alert for any sign of trouble. As she pushed open the ornate doors, she was struck by the sheer scale of the gathering. Row upon row of well-dressed community leaders, all eagerly awaiting the start of the proceedings. Scanning the room, Samantha's gaze landed on Meredith, the HOA president, who stood at the head of the table, her expression a mask of cool indifference. Steeling her nerves, Samantha took a deep breath and began to make her way towards the front of the room, determined to confront the woman who had orchestrated the destruction of her beloved beehives. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. As Samantha approached the podium, the murmuring in the room slowly died down, all eyes turning towards her. She could feel the weight of their collective gaze, the tension palpable in the air. Clearing her throat, Samantha began to speak, her voice wavering slightly at first, but quickly gaining strength and conviction. Thank you all for being here today. I know that you've all been made aware of the honey shortage that has gripped our community, and I'm here to tell you that I know the truth behind this crisis. Meredith's eyes narrowed, and Samantha could see the color draining from her face. What are you talking about? The HOA president hissed, her voice laced with barely contained fury. Undeterred, Samantha pressed on, laying out her evidence in meticulous detail. She described the HOA's long-standing efforts to consolidate power, the financial irregularities that pointed to embezzlement and corruption, and the chilling testimony of those who had dared to defy the organization's demands. As Samantha's revelations unfolded, the room erupted into a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. Residents who had once been cowed by the HOA's intimidation tactics now looked on with a newfound sense of outrage and determination. Meredith, her composure crumbling, tried in vain to interrupt and discredit Samantha's claims, but the weight of the evidence was simply too overwhelming to ignore. The HOA's carefully crafted facade of respectability and authority was beginning to crumble before their very eyes. Seizing the moment, Samantha turned to the stunned audience, her voice ringing with conviction. This is our community, and we will not allow the HOA to continue to exploit and control us. It's time to take back what is rightfully ours. The room erupted into thunderous applause, and Samantha knew that her gamble had paid off. The tide was turning, and the HOA's reign of terror was finally drawing to a close. The room erupted into a cacophony of shouts and cheers as Samantha's revelations reverberated through the HOA's annual meeting. Residents who had once been cowed by the organization's intimidation tactics now found their voices, rising from their seats and demanding accountability. Meredith, the HOA president, stood frozen, her composure crumbling as the weight of Samantha's evidence became impossible to ignore. The carefully crafted facade of respectability and control that the HOA had so meticulously cultivated was now in shambles, exposed for all to see. Seizing the moment, Samantha turned to the crowd, her voice ringing with conviction. This is our community, and we will not allow the HOA to continue to exploit and control us. It's time to take back what is rightfully ours. The audience erupted into thunderous applause, the tide of sentiment shifting rapidly in Samantha's favor. Emboldened, she continued to lay out her case, detailing the HOA's financial misdeeds, the manipulation of homeowners, and the ruthless tactics used to silence dissent. As Samantha spoke, the mood in the room transformed from one of passive acquiescence to one of righteous indignation. Residents who had once been too afraid to speak out now found their voices, sharing their own experiences of HOA overreach and demanding immediate change. Meredith, her face a mask of fury, tried in vain to regain control of the proceedings, but her efforts were met with cheers and catcalls from the crowd. It was clear that the balance of power had irrevocably shifted, and the HOA's reign of terror was now firmly in the crosshairs of the very community it had sought to dominate. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the aftermath of the confrontation, a sense of renewed hope and determination swept through the neighborhood. Residents, once divided by the HOA's manipulations, now banded together, determined to reclaim their community and hold the organization accountable for its misdeeds. Samantha, her heart swelling with pride, found herself at the center of this grassroots movement. Residents flocked to her, eager to contribute their own stories and evidence, and soon a comprehensive plan began to take shape. One that would systematically dismantle the HOA's power structure and restore the community's rightful autonomy. As the days passed, the momentum only grew stronger. Homeowners who had once been cowed into compliance now openly defied the HOA's demands, refusing to pay fines or comply with arbitrary rules. The organization's once ironclad grip began to slip as residents reclaimed their properties and their collective voice. Meredith, her position now tenuous, lashed out with increasing desperation, threatening legal action and even physical retaliation. But the community, emboldened by their newfound unity, refused to be cowed. They had tasted the sweet freedom of resistance, and they were determined to see it through to the bitter end. As the battle raged on, Samantha knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous. The HOA, with its deep pockets and vast network of influence, would not go down without a fight. But for the first time in years, she felt a renewed sense of hope, a belief that the community could reclaim its destiny and create a brighter future, free from the shackles of the HOA's oppressive rule. The battle to reclaim the community from the HOA's clutches raged on, with tempers flaring and tensions running high. Meredith, the HOA president, had proven to be a ruthless and formidable opponent, employing every trick in the book to maintain her organization's grip on the neighborhood. But the residents, galvanized by Samantha's revelations and emboldened by their newfound unity, refused to back down. They organized protests, launched legal challenges, and even conducted their own investigations into the HOA's financial dealings, determined to uncover the full extent of the corruption. As the pressure mounted, Meredith grew increasingly desperate, lashing out with threats and intimidation tactics. She attempted to paint Samantha as a troublemaker, spreading rumors, and even going so far as to file baseless lawsuits against her. But the community rallied around their leader, standing firm in their resolve to see the fight through. In the midst of the turmoil, the honey shortage continued to plague the neighborhood, a constant reminder of the HOA's devastating actions. Residents now actively boycotted the organization's approved suppliers, seeking out alternative sources of the precious golden liquid. The HOA's control over the community's resources was rapidly slipping away, and Meredith knew that she was running out of options. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. One night, as Samantha pored over the latest batch of financial documents, a knock came at her door. Cautiously, she peered through the peephole, only to be greeted by the sight of a familiar face, her neighbor, Sarah, whose own beehives had been destroyed in the HOA's purge. Samantha opened the door, her heart racing. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" The other woman's eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "Samantha, I have something to tell you, something that could change everything." Ushering Sarah inside, Samantha listened with rapt attention as the woman revealed a shocking discovery. It seemed that, in the aftermath of the beehive destruction, a small group of residents had secretly banded together, pooling their resources to establish a clandestine network of backyard apiaries. "We've been working in the shadows, growing our own honey supply and distributing it to the community," Sarah explained, her voice trembling. "But the HOA has caught wind of what we're doing, and they're threatening to shut us down." Samantha's eyes widened with a mixture of hope and dread. "So you're saying we have a way to circumvent the HOA's control over the honey supply?" Sarah nodded, her expression grave. "Yes, but we need your help. The HOA is coming for us, and we can't stand up to them alone." Samantha's mind raced as she considered the implications of this revelation. The underground honey network, could be the key to breaking the HOA's stranglehold on the community, but at what cost? She knew that the organization would stop at nothing to maintain its power, and that challenging them head-on could have devastating consequences. Still, the opportunity was too compelling to ignore. Steeling her resolve, Samantha grasped Sarah's hand, her eyes burning with determination. "I'm in. Let's do this." Samantha's heart raced as she listened to Sarah's shocking revelation of the clandestine network of backyard apiaries that had sprung up in the wake of the HOA's beehive destruction. The implications were staggering. A way to circumvent the organization's control over the community's honey supply and restore a vital resource to the beleaguered residents. But Samantha also knew that this underground operation was a dangerous gamble. The HOA, desperate to maintain its grip on power, would undoubtedly stop at nothing to crush this rebellion. The stakes had never been higher, and the risks were substantial. Still, the opportunity was too compelling to ignore. Squeezing Sarah's hand, Samantha's eyes burned with determination. "I'm in. Let's do this." Over the next few days, Samantha immersed herself in the workings of the underground honey network, marveling at the resourcefulness and resilience of her fellow residents. Despite the constant threat of HOA retaliation, they had managed to establish a thriving system of backyard hives, harvesting and distributing the precious golden liquid to those in need. As Samantha coordinated with the network's leaders, she began to formulate a bold plan. One that would not only undermine the HOA's control over the community's resources, but also expose the organization's corruption to the world. It was a high-stakes gamble, but Samantha knew that the time had come to strike back with everything she had. The day of the operation dawned with a palpable sense of tension in the air. Samantha and her fellow rebels moved with precise coordination, carefully distributing the honey to families across the neighborhood. As word of the underground network's activities spread, the community erupted into a frenzy of joy and defiance, the people's spirit rekindled by the sweet taste of freedom. But the HOA, true to form, was not about to let this challenge to its authority go unanswered. Meredith, her face contorted with rage, mobilized her security forces, hell-bent on crushing the rebellion before it could gain any more momentum. The resulting confrontation was a chaotic and violent affair, with residents fighting tooth and nail to protect their precious honey supply, and the HOA's goons employing every tactic in their arsenal to regain control. Samantha found herself at the center of the maelstrom, her heart pounding as she fought to keep the network's operations running and the community's spirit alive. In the end, it was a battle too close to call. The HOA had been dealt a devastating blow, its stranglehold on the community's resources shattered, but the organization remained defiant, vowing to crush the uprising once and for all. As the dust settled, Samantha surveyed the scene, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. The war was far from over, but she had tasted the sweet flavor of victory, and she knew that the path to true freedom lay in the unwavering determination of her fellow residents to stand up to the HOA's tyranny, no matter the cost. The fight for the community's future had only just begun, and Samantha was more ready than ever to lead the charge.